Please turn to page 4 of chapter 22. We will start from the treasury of shame. And also, on page 8, there is a missing paragraph. So if you have the book with the, there is a paragraph on the left page. We will recite that paragraph after exhaustive giving. years of millions of eons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Flower Dome Sutra, Chapter 22. Disciples of the Buddha, what is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's treasury of shame? These Bodhisattvas remember the evil they did in the past, and they give rise to shame, which is to say, they themselves reflect from beginningless time onward. We and all living beings have mutually been one another's father, mother, old brother, younger brother, older sister, younger sister, son and daughter. But because we are filled with greed, hatred, and stupidity, arrogance and deceptiveness, and all sorts of other afflictions, we have also mutually hurt one another and reciprocally exploited one another. We have lusted, raped, injured, and killed. There is no evil we have not committed. It is this way for all beings. Based on their afflictions, they double their manifold evils. For this reason, among everyone there is no mutual respect, no mutual veneration, no mutual compliance, no mutual humility, no mutual guidance, and no mutual regard. Rather, there is a furthering of mutual killing and harming, so that everyone becomes revengeful enemies. They themselves consider we personally, as well as all living beings, are shameless about our past, future, and present behavior. Yet there is not a single deed which the Buddhas of the three periods of time do not know and see. So now if we do not cut off this shameless behavior, the Buddhas of the three periods of time will continue to see us. How could we possibly not stop acting like this? There is no way we cannot stop. Therefore we should single-mindedly sever and get rid of such behavior and become certified to Anuttara Samya Sambodhi, so that we can expansively speak true and actual Dharma for living beings. This is called the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's third treasury, that of shame. Disciples of the Buddha, what is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's treasury of remorse? These Bodhisattvas themselves are remorseful that in the past they indulged in greedily seeking the five desires without awareness or cessation. Because of this, their greed, hatred, and stupidity, and various other afflictions increased. I should not do these things anymore, is their thought. They continue to reflect. Living beings lack wisdom and give rise to afflictions. They all practice evil dharmas and are not mutually respectful or courteous, even to the point that they become revengeful enemies. There is no evil of any sort which they do not engage in full force. Having engaged in it, they are happy and seek for praise. They are blind without the wisdom eye and have no knowledge or vision. From their mother's belly they enter the womb and are born with an unclean body. In the end, their hair turns white and their faces get wrinkled. Those with wisdom contemplate this and see that this solely comes about from the impurity of sexual desire. The Buddhas of the three periods of time all know and see this. If I continue to act like this, then I am just trying to deceive the Buddhas of the three periods of time. Therefore, I should cultivate a sense of remorse, quickly accomplish Anuttara Samya Sambodhi, and extensively speak true and actual Dharma for the sake of living beings. This is called the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's fourth treasury, that of remorse. Disciples of the Buddha, What is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's treasury of learning? These Bodhisattvas know that because some phenomena exist, other phenomena exist, that because some phenomena do not exist, other phenomena do not exist, that because some phenomena arise, other phenomena arise, that because some phenomena cease to be, other phenomena cease to be, whether they are mundane dharmas, transcendental dharmas, conditioned dharmas, unconditioned dharmas, determinate dharmas, or indeterminate dharmas. What are the phenomena which exist because other phenomena exist? For instance, activity exists because ignorance exists. What are the phenomena which do not exist because other phenomena do not exist? For instance, name and form do not exist when consciousness does not exist. What are the phenomena which arise because other phenomena arise? For instance, suffering arises because emotional love arises. What are phenomena that cease to be because other phenomena cease to be? For instance, birth ceases to be when becoming ceases to be. What are mundane dharmas? They are, for instance, form, feeling, thinking, activity, and consciousness. What are transcendental dharmas? They are, for instance, precepts, samadhi, wisdom, liberation and liberation of knowledge and views. What are conditioned dharmas? They are, for instance, the realm of desire, the form realm, the formless realm, and the realm of living beings. What are unconditioned dharmas? They are, for instance, emptiness, nirvana, the extinction involving reckoning of conditions, the extinction not involving reckoning of conditions, arisal from conditions and dwelling in the Dharma nature. What are determinate dharmas? They are, for instance, the four holy truths, the four fruits of Ashramana, the four eloquences, the four fearlessnesses, the four applications of mindfulness, the four right efforts, the four spiritual fulfillments, the five roots, the five powers, the seven shares of enlightenment, and the 8 sagely way shares. What are indeterminate dharmas? They are, for instance, whether worlds are bounded, whether worlds are boundless, whether worlds are both bounded or boundless, whether worlds are neither bounded or boundless, whether worlds are permanent, whether permanent or impermanent, whether worlds are neither permanent nor impermanent, whether thus come one exists after extinction, whether thus come ones do not exist after extinction, whether thus come one both exist and do not exist after extinction, whether thus come ones neither exist nor do not exist after extinction, whether a self and living beings do not exist, whether a self and living beings both exist and do not exist, whether a self and living beings neither exist nor do not exist. How many parinirvanas of thus comes one, and how many parinirvanas of sound hearers and Pratyeka Buddhas have there been in the past? How many Buddhas, sound hearers, Pratyeka Buddhas, and living beings will there be in the future? How many Buddhas, sound hearers, Pratyeka Buddhas, and living beings will there at present? Which thus come once first appeared in the world, which sound hearers and Pratyeka Buddhas first appeared in the world, which living beings first appeared in the world, which will be the last thus come ones to dwell in the world, which will be the last sound hearers and Pratyeka Buddhas to dwell in the world, which will be the last living beings to dwell in the world, which Dharma first came to be, And which Dharma will be the last? Where did worlds come from? And to what places will worlds go? How many world systems have arisen? And how many world systems have been destroyed? Where have world systems come from? And where do they go to? What is the boundary of before birth and death? And what is the boundary of after birth and death? These are called indeterminate dharmas. The Bodhisattva Mahasattvas have this thought. All living beings in the midst of birth and death lack learning and cannot understand all these dharmas. I should resolve to uphold the treasury of learning and become certified to Anuttara Samya Sambodhi, and for the sake of living beings, speak true and actual Dharma. This is called the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's fifth treasury, that of learning. Disciples of the Buddha, what is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's treasury of giving? These Bodhisattvas practice 10 kinds of giving. They are giving by reducing one's portion, exhaustive giving, the giving of inner wealth, the giving of outer wealth, the giving of inner and outer wealth, total giving, past giving, future giving, present giving, and ultimate giving. Giving by reducing one's portion. Disciples of the Buddha, what is the Bodhisattva's giving by reducing one's portion? These Bodhisattvas who are humane and compassionate by nature, well practice giving. If they obtain delicious food, they do not keep it for themselves, but offer it to living beings and afterwards eat a portion. It is the same with all material objects they receive. When they themselves eat, they have this thought, in my body there are 80,000 worms who rely on me to live. When my body is full and content, they are full and content. When my body is suffering from hunger, they also suffer from hunger. I now accept all of this food and drink with the hope that all living beings will be full. It is in order to give that I take the food. I am not greedy for its flavors. They also have this thought. Throughout the long night of time, I have been lovingly attached to my body and have partaken of food and drink from a desire to fill it up. Now I use the nourishment from this food as a gift to living beings, and vow to eternally cut off greed and attachment with regard to my body. This is called giving by reducing one's portion. What is the Bodhisattva's exhaustive giving? Disciples of the Buddha, these Bodhisattvas obtain all kinds of supremely flavored food and drink, fragrant flowers, clothes, and provisions of life. Were they to use these things themselves, they would be peaceful, happy, and long-lived. If they deny themselves and give to others, then they will be poor, miserable, and die young. If at that time a person comes and says, "You should give everything you have to me," the Bodhisattva says to himself, "From beginningless time to the present, because of starvation, I have lost my body countless times, yet I never did even a hair's worth of benefit for living beings that would have been of wholesome benefit to me as well. Now I should, as those before me have done, renounce my life in order to benefit living beings. According to what I own, I should renounce everything, even my very life, without any stinginess. This is called exhaustive giving." What is the Bodhisattva's giving of inner wealth? Disciples of the Buddha, suppose a Bodhisattva is youthful and robust, upright and handsome, clothed in 5 garments and adorned with fragrant flowers, having just received anointment on the crown of his head to make him a wheel-turning king, and who is replete with the 7 jewels and ruling over the 4 continents. Suppose he is approached by a person who addressed his lordship, O great king, know that I am now old and decrepit, plagued with many illnesses, friendless, childless, emaciated, and eccentric. My death is not far off. If I had the king's body, hands, feet, blood, flesh, head, eyes, bones, and marrow, I could go on living. I pray that the king will not be calculating or stingy, but will look upon me with kind thoughts and give himself to me. At that time the Bodhisattva says to himself, in the future my physical body must also die and will be of no benefit to anyone. It is fitting that I should immediately relinquish it to save a living being. Having had this thought, he gives himself away without any regrets. This is called the giving of inner wealth. What is the Bodhisattva's giving of outer wealth? Disciples of the Buddha, suppose a Bodhisattva is in his prime, full-featured, replete with the multitude of marks, and clothed in garments of superb elegance. He has just received anointing of the crown and been inaugurated as a wheel-turning king. He is replete with the 7 jewels and rules over the 4 continents. Suppose he is approached by a person who addresses his lordship saying, I am poverty-stricken and oppressed by a multitude of sufferings. I only hope that the human one will especially let fall his highness, relinquish his royal position, and bequeath it to me. Then I can be in command and enjoy the blessings of a king. At that time the Bodhisattva thinks like this, all that is glorious will pass away, and when it is gone, I will be enabled to further benefit living beings. It is fitting that I fulfill his wishes. Having had this thought, he gives him everything without any regret. This is called the giving of outer wealth. What is called the giving of inner and outer wealth? Disciples of the Buddha, suppose a Bodhisattva such as described above, who has the position of a wheel-turning king, is replete with the 7 jewels, and rules over the 4 continents, is approached by someone who says, this position of wheel-turning king that the king inherited long ago is something I have never had. I only wish, O great king, that you would relinquish it to me, and that you, your majesty, would become my servant. At that time the Bodhisattva thinks to himself, my body, wealth, and gems, as well as the royal position, are all dharmas which are impermanent and destined to decay. I am now in my prime, and my riches encompass all under heaven. Since this beggar has come forth, I will use what is insubstantial to seek a substantial dharma. Having thought thus, he gives everything over to that person, and with his own body respectfully and diligently serves him. His mind harbors no regret. This is called the giving of inner and outer wealth. What is meant by the Bodhisattva's total giving? Disciples of the Buddha, as before, this Bodhisattva inherits the position of a wheel-turning king. He is replete with the 7 jewels and rules over the 4 continents. At one time, limitless poverty-stricken people approached him and said, Great King, your renown pervades and is heard throughout the 10 directions. Out of liberation we have come. We each have certain things we would like, and we hope that you will be compassionate and fulfill our wishes. Then the poor people begged variously of the king. Some asked for his country, some wanted his wives or children,
some wished for his hands and feet, some wanted his blood, flesh, heart, lungs, head, eyes, marrow, and brains.
The Bodhisattva at that time had this thought, I will eventually have to part from all those for whom I have fondness and love, but it will have been of no benefit to living beings. Now, with the hope of forever casting out greed and emotional love, I will use all of these things that are destined to disperse to fulfill these living beings' wishes. Having had this thought, he bestowed upon them all the things they wanted, without any thoughts of regret, nor any sense of repulsion or contempt toward those living beings. This is called total giving. What is the Bodhisattva's past giving? When these Bodhisattvas hear about the merit and virtue of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the past, they do not become attached. They understand its lack of existence. They do not give rise to discriminations. They are not greedy for it, not obsessed by it, and they do not grasp or seek it. They are without a place of reliance. They see dharmas as being like a dream, devoid of any solid substance. They do not give rise to thoughts about gurus, nor do they rely on them. It is only for the sake of teaching and transforming that they cling to living beings. They become perfected in the Buddha Dharma and then proclaim it. Moreover, they further contemplate all past dharmas and realize that even when they are sought throughout the 10 directions,
they cannot be got at. Having had this thought, they completely relinquish all past dharmas.
This is called past giving. What is the Bodhisattva's future giving? When these Bodhisattvas hear how all future Buddhas will cultivate, they understand their lack of existence.
They do not grasp at appearances. They take no special delight in getting reborn in any Buddha land. They are not obsessed or attached, and they do not give rise to weariness. They do not use their good roots to transfer to them, nor do they, because of them, retreat from their good roots.
They are constant and diligent in their cultivation, never renouncing it. It is only because they wish to gather in living beings that they make use of such states. So they speak for them what is true and actual, and cause them to become nature within the Buddha Dharma. And yet these dharmas do not exist in any location, nor do they lack of location. They are not inside, nor outside, not near and not far. They also have this thought, if dharmas do not exist, then I cannot fail to renounce them. This is called future giving. What is the Bodhisattva's present giving? These Bodhisattvas hear about the amount of merit and virtue the gods in the heaven of the 4 heavenly kings are replete with, as well as those in the heaven of the 33, the Suyama heaven, the Tushita heaven, the heaven of the transformation of bliss, the heaven of the comfort from other transformations,
the heavens of Brahma, the Brahma body heaven, the heaven of the ministers of Brahma,
the heaven of the multitudes of Brahma, the great Brahma heaven, the heavens of light, the lesser light heaven, the limitless light heaven, the light sound hearer, the heavens of purity, the heaven of lesser purity, the heaven of limitless purity, the heaven of pervasive purity, the heavens of abundance, the heaven of lesser abundance, the heaven of limitless abundance, the heaven of abundant fruit, the heaven of no afflictions, the heaven of no heat, the good view heaven, the good manifestation heaven, the heaven of multitude form, and so forth, up to and including sound hearers and those enlightened to conditions.
who are replete with merit and virtue. After hearing about this, their minds are neither confused nor depressed, nor do they become obsessed by or scattered by all of this. They merely contemplate all practices as being like a dream that lacks any reality, and they have no greed or attachment toward them. It is for the sake of causing living beings to renounce and leave the evil destinies, to have their minds become free from discriminations, to cultivate the Bodhisattva path and accomplish the Buddha Dharmas, that is, speak and explain. This is called present giving. What is the Bodhisattva's ultimate giving? Disciples of the Buddha supposed there were living beings who perhaps had no eyes, nor no ears, or no noses or tongues, or no hands and feet, who came to where the Bodhisattva was and said, "My body is defective, my faculties are maimed and incomplete. I only wish the humane one would compassionately use expedient means and relinquish what he has in order to make me whole and perfect." When the Bodhisattva hears this, he immediately gives it his way, and if because of this he must pass through asankhya's of kalpas with incomplete faculties, still his mind never gives rise to a thought of regret. He only contemplates that from the time he entered the womb, he had an unclean form. He reflects on how the fetus, which takes shape and develops sense organs, is subject to birth, old age, sickness, and death. He also contemplates the body as unreal, that it is shameless and not a thing which is sacred or holy. It smells, is filthy and unclean. It is supported by bones and joints, and smeared with blood and flesh. The 9 apertures constantly flow with impurities. It is that which people loathe and despise. Having contemplated in this way, he does not give rise to a single thought of love or attachment regarding it. He also has this thought: this body is fragile and not solid, so why should I be fond of or attached to it? I should give to all those people to fulfill their wishes. I do this to instruct and guide living beings, to cause them to not be greatly attached to their bodies and minds, so they can all become accomplished in the pure wisdom body. This is called ultimate giving. This is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's 6th treasury, that of giving. Disciples of the Buddha, what is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's treasury of wisdom? These Bodhisattvas have a true knowledge of form, a true knowledge of the accumulation of form, a true knowledge of the extinction of form, and the true knowledge of the path that leads to the extinction of form. They have a true knowledge of feeling, thinking, activity, and consciousness, a true knowledge of the accumulation of feeling, thinking, activity, and consciousness, a true knowledge of the extinction of feeling, thinking, activity, and consciousness, and a true knowledge of the path that leads to the extinction of feeling, thinking, activity, and consciousness. They have a true knowledge of ignorance, a true knowledge of the accumulation of ignorance, a true knowledge of the extinction of ignorance, and a true knowledge of the path that leads to the extinction of ignorance. They have a true knowledge of craving, a true knowledge of the accumulation of craving, a true knowledge of the extinction of craving, and a true knowledge of the path that leads to the extinction of craving. They have a true knowledge of sound hearers, a true knowledge of the dharmas of sound hearers, a true knowledge of the accumulation of sound hearers, and a true knowledge of the nirvana of sound hearers. They have a true knowledge of solitarily enlightened ones, a true knowledge of the dharmas of solitarily enlightened ones, a true knowledge of the accumulation of solitarily enlightened ones, and a true knowledge of the nirvana of solitarily enlightened ones. They have a true knowledge of bodhisattvas, a true knowledge of the dharmas of bodhisattvas, a true knowledge of the accumulation of bodhisattvas, and a true knowledge of the nirvana of bodhisattvas. What do they know? They know that they are brought about from causes, conditions, and karmic retribution of all activities. Everything is empty, false, and devoid of actuality. There is no self and nothing substantial. There is not the slightest dharma which can be established. Wishing to cause living beings to know the actual nature of dharmas, they speak expansively. What do they speak about? They say that all dharmas cannot be destroyed. All dharmas cannot be destroyed. Form cannot be destroyed. Feeling, thinking, activity, and consciousness cannot be destroyed. Ignorance cannot be destroyed. The dharmas of Sankhyaras cannot be destroyed. The dharmas of solitarily enlightened ones cannot be destroyed. All the dharmas of bodhisattvas cannot be destroyed. Why is this? It is because all dharmas are not created. They have no creator. They cannot be expressed. They have no location. They are not produced. They do not arise. They do not give. They do not take. They do not move or turn, and they have no function. Bodhisattvas accomplish such a treasury of limitless wisdom. From a few expedient means, they understand all dharmas. They naturally comprehend without others enlightening them. There are 10 reasons why this treasury of inexhaustible wisdom is known as inexhaustible. What are the 10? They are, it is inexhaustible because they are learned and skillful. It is inexhaustible because they draw near good and wise advisors. It is inexhaustible because they are well able to discern the meaning of phrases. It is inexhaustible because they have entered the depth of the Dharma realm. It is inexhaustible because they have used the wisdom of a single flavor to adorn themselves. It is inexhaustible because they have accumulated blessings and virtue without becoming weary at heart. It is inexhaustible because they have entered all dharani doors. It is inexhaustible because they can well discriminate all living beings' languages, words, voices, and sounds. It is inexhaustible because they can sever all of living beings' doubts and delusions. It is inexhaustible because they manifest all Buddha's spiritual powers for the sake of all living beings, in order to teach and transform, tame and subdue them, and cause them to cultivate without interruption. These are the 10. This is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's 7th treasury, that of wisdom. Those who abide in this treasury obtain inexhaustible wisdom and are universally able to enlighten all living beings. Disciples of the Buddha, what is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's treasury of mindfulness? These bodhisattvas cast aside and separate from all stupidity and delusion, and become replete with mindfulness. They remember the past 1 life, 2 lives, up to 10 lives, 100 lives, 1,000 lives, 100,000 lives, limitless hundreds of thousands of lives, the coming into being of kalpas, the decay of kalpas, the arising and decay of kalpas, not just the arising of 1 kalpa, not just the decay of 1 kalpa, and just the arising and decay of 1 kalpa, but 100 kalpas, 1,000 kalpas, 100,000 million ayutas, up to countless, limitless, boundless, unequaled, incalculable, inexpressible, inconceivable, immeasurable, ineffable, ineffable kalpas. They remember 1 Buddha's name up to the names of ineffable Buddhas. They remember 1 Buddha's coming into the world and giving a prediction. up to ineffably ineffable Buddhas coming into the world and giving predictions. They remember one Buddha coming into the world and speaking the sutras, up to ineffably ineffable Buddhas coming into the world and speaking sutras. As it is with sutras, so it is with Gayas, bestowal of predictions, gathas, nidanas, uddadanas, past lives, and this life by pulya, that which has never been before, analogies and discourses. They remember one assembly up to ineffably ineffable assemblies. They remember the explanation of one Dharma up to the explanation of ineffably ineffable Dharmas. They remember the various aspects of one faculty up to the various aspects of the ineffably ineffable faculties. They remember the limitless various aspects of one faculty up to the limitless various aspects of ineffably ineffable faculties. They remember the various aspects of one affliction up to the various aspects of ineffably afflictions. They remember the various aspects of one samadhi up to the various aspects of ineffably ineffable samadhis. These kinds of mindfulness are of 10 kinds. They are mindfulness which is still and quiet, mindfulness which is pure, mindfulness which is not turbid, mindfulness which is bright and penetrating, mindfulness which is apart from defilement, mindfulness which is apart from various defilements, mindfulness which is apart from filth, mindfulness which is bright and dazzling, mindfulness which is pleasing, and mindfulness which is free from obstacles. When the bodhisattvas dwell in these mindfulness, nothing in the world can disturb or unsettle them. No strange theories can move them. Their good roots from past lives are made pure, and they are not defiled by or attached to any dharma in the world. The multitudes of demons and those of external ways cannot destroy them. They can undergo rebirth and receive different bodies without any lapse in memory. They proclaim the Dharma endlessly throughout the past, present, and future. They abide together with living beings in all worlds without ever making mistakes. They enter the assemblies in the Bodhi mandalas of all Buddhas without any obstacles. They can draw near all the places where there are Buddhas. This is called the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's 8th treasury, that is mindfulness. Disciples of the Buddha, what is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's treasury of upholding? These bodhisattvas uphold all the phrases, sentences, meanings, and principles in the sutras which the Buddhas have spoken, without forgetting or losing any of them. They uphold them for one life and so forth, up to upholding them for ineffably ineffable numbers of lives. They uphold one Buddha's name and so forth, up to upholding the names of ineffably Buddhas. They uphold them for one kalpa and so forth, up to upholding them for ineffably ineffable kalpas. They uphold one Buddha's bestowal of predictions and so forth, up to upholding the bestowal of predictions of ineffably ineffable Buddhas. They uphold one sutra and so forth, up to upholding ineffably sutras. They uphold one Dharma assembly and so forth, up to upholding ineffably ineffable Dharma assemblies. They uphold the proclaiming of one Dharma and so forth, up to upholding the proclaiming of ineffably Dharmas. They uphold the limitless aspects in the nature of all one faculty and so forth, up to upholding the limitless aspects in the nature of ineffably ineffable faculties. They uphold the variations in the nature of one affliction and so forth, up to upholding the variations in the nature of ineffably ineffable afflictions.
They uphold the various qualities in the nature of one samadhi and so forth, up to upholding the various qualities in the nature of ineffable samadhis. Disciples of the Buddha, this treasury of upholding is boundless. It is difficult to fulfill and difficult to reach its depths. It is difficult to draw near. It cannot be curtailed or subdued. It is limitless, inexhaustible, and replete with great awesome power. It is the state of a Buddha, which is only a Buddha can comprehend. This is called the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's ninth treasury that is upholding. Namo Sammanto Moto Nan Apolati Hado Janai Mi Anti Mi Jim Tanta Gadanan Moa Shanding Bolati Udam Modam Tanta Gadanan Moa Hong Pansa Namo Sammanto Moto Nan Apolati Hado Janai Mi Anti Mi Jim Tanta Gadanan Moa Shanding Bolati Udam Modam Tanta Gadanan Moa Hong Pansa Namo Sammanto Moto Apolati Hado Janai Anji Mi Jimi Danta Gadanan Moa Shanding Bolati Udam Modam Danta Gadanan Moa Hong Pansa. Praise for the fourth assembly. In the ocean of practices, the waves surge and billow. Clouds display the doors of kindness. Up in the Yama heaven, cloud-like multitudes arrive. They circumambulate the honored Dharma King. Flowers rain down in colorful profusion, and the entire assembly is majestically present. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night. Because all hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Bowing respect to the Venerable Master. Nam mô Đa Phật Quang
Namo, one fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo, fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo, fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. The unsurpassed, profound and wonderful Dharma is difficultly encountered in hundreds of millions of eons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it, and I bow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. Flower Adornment Sutra, the 10th Exhaustible Treasury, Chapter 22. Disciples of the Buddha, what is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's treasury of eloquence? These Bodhisattvas have profound wisdom. They understand and know the real mark. They expansively explain all dharmas for living beings. They do not go counter to any other Buddha sutras. They explain one section of Dharma and so forth, up to explaining ineffable sections of Dharma. They explain one Buddha's name and so forth, up to explaining ineffable Buddha's names. In the same way, they can explain about one world realm, one Buddha's prediction, one sutra, and one assembly. They can proclaim one Dharma. They can explain the limitless variations in the nature of one faculty. They can explain the limitless variations in the nature of one affliction. They can explain the limitless various qualities in the nature of one samadhi, and so forth, up to explaining the limitless various qualities in the nature of ineffable samadhis. Perhaps they explain for one day, for half a month, or for 1 month. Perhaps they explain for 100 years, 1,000 years, or 1,000 years. Perhaps they explain for 1 kalpa, 100 kalpas, 1,000 kalpas, or 100,000 kalpas. Perhaps they explain for billions or non-yutas of kalpas,
up to including ineffable kalpas. The number of kalpas cannot be exhausted. Can be exhausted, but the meanings and principles in a single phrase or a single sentence are difficult to exhaust.
Why is this? These Bodhisattvas accomplish the 10 kinds of inexhaustible treasuries, and because they perfect this treasury, they are able to gather in the Dharani doors of all dharmas, and have these appear before them with 1,000,000 asankeyas or Dharanis as their retinue. Having attained these Dharanis, they use the light of Dharma to expansively proclaim the Dharma for living beings. When they speak the Dharma, they use their vast and long tongues to emit wonderful sounds that pervade all worlds of the 10 directions, and cause those in them to be fulfilled according to their faculties and natures, so that their hearts are happy. They destroy all afflictions and the bonds of defilement. They skillfully enter into all sounds, words, languages, and phrases, perfecting an eloquence which causes living beings Buddha's seed to not be cut off and their pure minds to be continuous. Also, they use the light of Dharma to speak the Dharma without end, and they never grow weary. Why is this? It is because this Bodhisattva perfects a boundless body which exhausts empty space and pervades the Dharma realm. This is the Bodhisattva Mahasattva's 10th treasury, that is eloquence. This treasury cannot be exhausted, cannot be divided, cannot be interrupted, cannot be cut off, cannot be changed, cannot be obstructed, and cannot be retreated from. It is deep without bottom and difficult to enter. It is the gate of universal entry into all Buddha dharmas. Disciples of the Buddha, these 10 kinds of inexhaustible treasuries have 10 kinds of inexhaustible dharmas, by which the Bodhisattva ultimately accomplish
unsurpassed Bodhi. What are the 10?
They they are, benefiting of all living beings, wholesome transference of one's basic vows, ceaseless practice throughout all kalpas, balance of the totally enlightened mind, which exhausts the realms of empty space, transference to what is conditioned without any attachment, having one thought encompass all dharmas without exhaustion, unalterability of the mind of great vows, while gathering in all dharanis, being those of whom all Buddhas are mindful and protected, and understand that all dharmas are like an illusion. These are the 10 kinds of inexhaustible dharmas which can enable anyone in the world who uses them to obtain this ultimate inexhaustible great treasuries. End of chapter 22. Praise for the fourth assembly. In the ocean of practices, the waves surge and billow. Clouds display the laws of kindness. Up in the Yama heaven, cloud-like multitudes arrive. They circumambulate the honored Dharma king. Flowers rain down in colorful profusion, and the entire assembly is majestically present. Flower Adornment Sutra praises in the Tushita Heaven Palace, chapter 24. At that time, because of the Buddha's spiritual power, in each of the 10 directions there was a great bodhisattva, each of whom was accompanied by bodhisattvas as many as dosmos in 10,000 Buddha-kshetras. They were from worlds beyond lands to the number of dosmos in 10,000 Buddha-kshetras, and they all came to the Buddha's place. Their names were Vajrabhana Bodhisattva,
Solid Banner Bodhisattva, Courageous Banner Bodhisattva, Bright Light Banner Bodhisattva, Wisdom Banner Bodhisattva, Jeweled Banner Bodhisattva, Vigorous Banner Bodhisattva, Apart from Filth Banner Bodhisattva, Constellation Banner Bodhisattva, and Dharma Banner Bodhisattva. And the countries from which they came were called Wonderful Jeweled World, Wonderful Bliss World, Wonderful Silver World, Wonderful Gold World, Wonderful Mani World, Wonderful Vajra World, Wonderful Padma World, Wonderful Utpala World, Wonderful Chandana World, and Wonderful Fragrance World.
Each of them had purely cultivated Brahma conduct in the presence of the Buddhas, specifically Inexhaustible Banner Buddha, Wind Banner Buddha, Liberation Banner Buddha, Awesome Banner Buddha, Bright Mark Banner Buddha, Constant Banner Buddha, Most Supreme Banner Buddha, Comfortable Banner Buddha, Brahma Banner Buddha, and Contemplating Banner Buddha. All of these bodhisattvas, having arrived at the Buddha's place, bow at the Buddha's feet. Then, using the Buddha's spiritual power, they created by transformation wonderful jewel treasury lion thrones, jewel nets covered and encircled them, filling every part. All of the multitudes of bodhisattvas, according to the direction from which they came, sat on them in full lotus. Their bodies are emitted hundreds of thousands of millions of nayutas or sankhya's of pure bright light. This measureless light had arising from the great vows of the Bodhisattva's pure mind jewel, which is apart from the host of transgressions and evils. They displayed all of the Buddha's comfortable pure dharmas, using all the Bodhisattva's level and equal power of vows. They were able to universally save and protect all living beings. All in the world were happy to see them, and their seeing was not in vain, for they all became subdued. These multitudes of bodhisattvas had already accomplished measureless merit and virtue, which is to say, they could pervasively roam throughout all Buddha's countries without obstruction. They could see the pure Dharma body, which was without reliance. By means of the wisdom body, they manifested measureless bodies. They pervaded the 10 directions to serve all Buddhas, and enter into all Buddhas' measureless, boundless, inconceivable dharmas of self-mastery. They dwell in measureless doors of all wisdom. With the bright light of wisdom, they understood well all dharmas. In the midst of all dharmas, they attained fearlessness, and accordingly proclaimed the dharma with unending eloquence to the exhaustion of the boundaries of the future. By means of great wisdom, they opened Dharani doors. With the pure wisdom eye, they entered the profound Dharma realm. Their states of wisdom had no boundaries, being ultimately pure like empty space.
Just as it is in the Tushita palace of this world, where all of the multitudes of bodhisattvas came and assembled in this way, so too in all the Tushita heaven palaces of the 10 directions,
all those bodhisattvas having the same name also came and assembled together. And in those countries from where they came, all the Buddha's names were identical with these, without any discrimination. At that time, from the wheels of the world honored one's 2 knees, there was emitted hundreds of thousands, millions of layutas of bright light, which universally illumined all worlds in the 10 directions. The exhaustion of the Dharma realm and the realm of empty space. In all worlds, all those bodhisattvas could see the appearance of these Buddha's spiritual transformations. And all these bodhisattvas could also see the appearance of the spiritual transformations of all those last come ones. All of these bodhisattvas had in the past, together with Vajrayana, thus come one, planted identical good woods and cultivated the bodhisattva conduct. They had already awakened to and entered all Buddha's comfortable, most profound liberation, and had attained the non-discriminating body of the Dharma realm. They entered all lands without having a place of dwelling. They saw measureless Buddhas and went to serve them all. Within a single thought, they traveled throughout the Dharma realm, comfortably and without obstruction. Their minds and thoughts were pure, like priceless jewels. All the measureless, numberless Buddhas, thus come ones, constantly aided them with protective mindfulness, and together endowed them with strength. They had ultimately reached the foremost outer shore. Constantly by means of pure mindfulness, they draw in unsurpassed enlightenment. In thought out of thought, they constantly enter the places of all wisdom. By means of the small, and they entered the great. By means of the great, they entered the small. Having completely attained self-mastery and unobstructed penetration, having already attained the Buddha's body, they dwelt together with the Buddhas. They had obtained all wisdom, their bodies had come forth from all wisdom.
They were all able to accordingly enter the places of all thus come one's practices. They opened and revealed measureless Dharma doors of wisdom. They reached the other shore of Vajrayana's great wisdom.
They obtained the Vajra Samadhi and cut off all doubts and delusions, having already attained all Buddha's self-mastery of spiritual penetrations. Everywhere in all countries of the 10 directions, they taught, transformed, and subdued incalculable hundreds of thousands and billions of living beings. And although they were not attached to any of these numbers, nonetheless, they were well able to cultivate successfully bring expedient means to ultimate perfection and securely establish all dharmas. In this way, hundreds of thousands of billions of layutas are ineffable, inexhaustibly pure bodhisattva multitudes, who were storehouses of all measureless merit and virtue. Throughout the 3 periods of time, all came and assembled at the Buddha's place. Because of this light, they could see all Buddha's faces in the same way.
At this time, Vajrayana Bodhisattva, receiving the Buddha's spiritual power, universally contemplated the 10 directions and spoke these verses.
The thus come ones do not appear in the world, moreover there is no nirvana. By means of the power of original great vows, they manifest the Dharma of self-mastery. This Dharma is difficult to conceal if it is not located in the minds of workings. When wisdom has arrived at the outer shore, one sees all Buddha's states. The form body is not the Buddha, the same is also true of sound. Yet it is not apart from forms or sound that one sees the Buddha's power of spiritual penetrations. One with little wisdom is unable to know all Buddha's true and actual states. When one has cultivated pure karma for a long time, then one is able to understand this. The ones of proper enlightenment have no place they come to, nor is there anywhere they go. Their pure and wonderful form bodies manifest because of spiritual penetration. Within measureless world systems, the past karma's bodies manifest. While extensively speaking the subtle, wonderful Dharma, their minds are without any attachments. With wisdom which is boundless, they thoroughly understand all Dharmas, universally entering into Dharma realms. They manifest the power of self-mastery. Living beings as well as all Dharmas are thoroughly understood without obstruction. They universally manifest a multitude of forms and images and pervade all kshetras. If one wishes to seek all wisdom and quickly accomplish unsurpassed enlightenment, one should use the pure and wondrous mind to cultivate the practice of Bodhi. If there is one who sees the first come one's powers or awesome spiritual such as these, one should make offerings to the most supreme honored ones and not have any doubts. At that time, solid banner Bodhisattva, receiving the Buddha's awesome spiritual power, universally contemplated the 10 directions and spoke these verses. The Tathagatas are superior beyond compare, inexpressible, deep and profound. They transcend the path of words and language, and are pure like empty space. You should contemplate these lions among men with their powers of comfortable spiritual penetrations, who are already apart from discriminations, yet able to cause those who discriminate to see them. The guiding masters proclaim the most profound, subtle, and wonderful Dharma, and according to the causes and conditions, they manifest incomparable bodies. This is a great wisdom, the place of all Buddha's practices. If one wishes to understand that one should constantly draw near the Buddhas, with mind karma constantly pure, one makes offerings to all Tathagatas, one's mind is never weary, and one is able to enter the Buddha's way, replete with merit and virtue inexhaustible. One firmly dwells in the Bodhi mind. Thus one casts out the natural doubts and contemplates the Buddhas without growing tired. Thoroughly penetrating all Dharmas, one is a true disciple of the Buddha. Such a one is able to understand and know all Buddha's powers of sovereignty. This is what vast and great wisdom proclaims. Desire is the origin of all Dharmas. One should give rise to supreme hopes and expectations, and with determination seek unsurpassed enlightenment. If there is one who is respectful of the Buddha and mindful to replay the Buddha's kindness, that one will never be apart from dwelling with the Buddhas. How could a person with wisdom, having seen or heard the Buddha, not cultivate pure vows and walk the Buddha's path? At that time, courageous Banner Bodhisattva, receiving the Buddha's spiritual power, universal contemplated and directions, and spoke these verses, just like clear and pure eyes, which because of the sun can see a multitude of forms, so do the pure mind in the same way can see the Tathagata by means of the Buddha's power. Just as with the power of vigor, one is able to fathom the source of the sea, so too the power of wisdom enables one to see measureless Buddhas. Just as a rich
fertile field will certainly nourish and make grow what is planted in it, so too the pure mind ground produces all Buddha dharmas. Just as a person who obtains a storehouse of jewels leaves the bitterness of poverty forever, the Bodhisattva who obtains the Buddha Dharma is apart from filth and purifies his mind.
Just as Agata medicine is able to eradicate all poison, so too the Buddha Dharma in the same way eradicates the distress of all afflictions. A true and actual good knowing advisor is one whom the Thaskan ones praise, for it is because of his awesome spiritual that one gets to hear all Buddha Dharmas. Throughout numberless kalpas, one may offer wealth and jewels to the Buddha, but if one does not know the Buddha's actual mark, one still cannot be said to be truly giving. A multitude of measureless forms and marks adorns the Buddha's body, yet it is not by means of forms or marks that one is able to see the Buddhas. The Thaskan ones of equal and proper enlightenment are tranquil, constantly unmoving, yet they are able to universally manifest bodies which pervasively fill up realms in the 10 directions. Just as the realm of empty space is neither produced nor extinguished, so too all Buddha's dharmas ultimately are not produced or destroyed.
At that time, bright light banner Bodhisattva, receiving the Buddha's spiritual power, universally contemplated the 10 directions and spoke these verses.
In the world of humans and in the heavens above, in all the world realms there are, one can universally see the Thaskan one's pure and exquisite form bodies, just as the power of a single mind is able to produce all kinds of thoughts. So too the Buddha's single body universally manifests all Buddhas. Bodhi is a non-dual Dharma, furthermore it is without any marks, yet within the midst of dual Dharmas there manifest the marks of the adorned body. Upon understanding Dharma, nature is empty and still, and arises like an illusion. Then that which one practices is without exhaustion. In this way the guiding mantras appear. All Buddhas of the 3 periods of time have Dharma bodies which are completely pure. According to those who should be transformed, they can universally manifest wonderful form bodies. The Thaskan one doesn't think to himself, I'll make a body like this. Rather, it naturally reveals itself, and he never gives rise to distinctions. He makes no discrimination about the Dharma realm, and also does not rely on it. Yet in the midst of the mundane world, he manifests measureless bodies.
The Buddha's body is changeless, however it does transform, for in the midst of the unchanging Dharma, he makes appear shapes by transformation. Proper enlightenment cannot be measured. It is equal to the Dharma realm in empty space, unfathomable in its depth and vastness. It is completely cut off from the path of words and language. The Thaskan one is skillfully able to penetrate.
He practices the way in every place. He can travel without obstruction to the multitudes of the countries in the Dharma realm. At that time, wisdom venerable Bodhisattva received the Buddha's spiritual power, universally contemplated the 10 directions, and spoke these verses. If a person can believe and receive all wisdom without obstruction, and if he cultivates Bodhi practices, his mind will be limitless. Within all countries, the Buddha universally manifests measureless bodies, yet these bodies do not have a location, nor do they dwell in dharmas. Each and every Tathagata makes appear bodies by means of spiritual powers. Throughout inconceivable kalpas, no calculations or reckonings can reach their end. As to all living beings of the 3 periods of time, the number can completely be known, but the number of bodies revealed by the Thaskan ones cannot be ascertained. Sometimes they manifest 1 or 2, at other times limitless bodies, although universally manifesting in lengths of the 10 directions. In fact, they are not 2 kinds. Consider for instance the pure full moon, which everywhere appears in all waters. Although its reflections are infinite, originally the moon isn't two. The same is true for one with unobstructed wisdom, who accomplishes equal from enlightenment. Although he universally appears in all lands, the Buddha's substance is non-dual. It is neither one nor two, it is also not limitless, but merely accords with those who should be transformed to display limitless bodies. The Buddha's body is not of the past, nor is it of the future. In a single thought, it presently appears, accomplishing the way and entering nirvana. Life forms conjured from an illusion, which are not produced and which do not arise. The Buddha's body is also this way. It manifests without having been produced. At that time, Jyopanna Bodhisattva received the Buddha's spiritual power, universally contemplated 10 directions, and spoke these verses. The Buddha's body has no limit, yet it can manifest bodies that have a limit. According to what should be seen, the guiding master thus appears. The Buddha's body has no location, yet it fills up all locations. Like emptiness, it has no boundaries. Thus it is difficult to conceive of. It is not the place of the mind's workings, nor does the mind arise within it. Within the stage of all Buddhas, ultimately there is neither production nor extinction. A cataract that covers the eye is neither within nor without. Those in the world who see the Buddha should know he is also like this. In order to benefit living beings, the thus come one comes into the world. Living beings perceive his coming, but in actuality he does not appear in the world. It can be that one perceives the Buddha in a certain country, or on a certain day or night, nor is it possible to delineate him in terms of years, months, or a single kshana.
Living beings say,
on such and such a day the Buddha accomplished the way. Yet the Tathagata's attainment of Bodhi is actually not fixed to a certain day. The thus come one is apart from discriminations, is not of this world and transcends all calculations. All guiding masters of the three periods of time appear in this way. Consider how although the pure solar orb actually does not unite with the dark or night, we still make reference to day and night together. So too do we treat the dharmas of all Buddhas. All kalpas in the three periods of time do not unite with the thus come ones. Yet we speak of the Buddhas of the three periods of time, and also regard the Dharma of the guiding master like this. At that time, vigorous Venerable Bodhisattva received the Buddha's spiritual power, universally contemplated the 10 directions, and spoke these verses. All guiding masters' bodies are the same,
and so too are their meanings. Universally in the lands of the 10 directions, according to potentials, they appear in various ways. You should contemplate the honored Muni. That which he does is extremely rare and special. He completely fills the Dharma realm, and there is nothing left out. The Buddha's body is not within, nor is it without. Because of spiritual power, it is revealed. The Dharma of the guiding master is just like this.
According to the categories of living creatures, and the karma they accumulate from various lives, various kind of bodies appear, and each one of them is different. The bodies of all Buddhas are like that, limitless and unreckonable. With the exception of the greatly enlightened honored ones, no one else can conceive of them, just as the self is difficult to conceive of, and the mind and its karma cannot be grasped. So too the Buddha is difficult to conceive of. It is not through the mind's karma that he appears, just as nets cannot be conceived of, yet the pure adornments can be seen. So too the Buddha is difficult to conceive of, yet all of his wonderful marks appear without exception, just as all dharmas arise from a number of conditions. So too is seeing the Buddha dependent on a mirror merit of good karma. Just as then as you will, pearl, can fulfill the minds of living beings, so too can the Buddha Dharma completely fulfill all your wishes. Within limitless countries, the guiding masters appear in the world. Because of the power of their vows, they respond everywhere throughout the 10 directions. At that time, apart from felt banner, Bodhisattva received the Buddha's spiritual power, universally contemplated the 10 directions and spoke these verses. The Tathagata's great wisdom light universally purifies all worlds. Once these worlds have been purified, he explains the Buddha Dharma. Supposing there are people who wish to see Buddhas equal in number to living beings, they will certainly all appear in response to such thoughts, yet there is actually no place they come to. One who takes the Buddha's states as one's own and concentrates one's mind without rest is one who will get to see Buddhas equal in number to one's thoughts, accomplishing pristine, pure dharmas, perfecting all mere virtue. One has total concentration and never lets one's mind forsake all wisdom. The guiding master, for the sake of living beings, explained the Dharma in accord with what ought to be spoken, complying with potentials which can be transformed. He universally manifests most supreme bodies. The Buddha's body and those of beings in the world are all without a self. Awakening to this, one can accomplish proper enlightenment and moral fulfillment for living beings. The light among men, with measureless powers of mastery, manifest bodies in number equal to minds, and these bodies are each different. The bodies of those in the worlds are the same as Buddha's bodies. One with complete understanding of the self-nature is called a Buddha.
The thus come one has universal knowledge and views and completely understands all dharmas. But as to the Buddha Dharma and Bodhi, neither one can be obtained. The guiding master has no coming nor going. Moreover, he has no dwelling place. Far apart from all upside-downness, he is called one of equal and proper enlightenment.
At that time, constellation Bear Bodhisattva received the Buddha's spiritual power, universally contemplated 10 directions and spoke these verses. The thus come one has no dwelling place and yet universally dwells in all countries. Traveling to all lands, he can be seen in all places. The Buddha accords with the minds of living beings and everywhere reveals all Buddhas. He accomplishes the way, turns the Dharma wheel, and then enters a parinirvana. All Buddhas are inconceivable. Who is able to conceive of the Buddha? Who is able to perceive proper enlightenment? Who is able to manifest the most supreme body?
All dharmas are thus, so too are the states of all Buddhas, even to the point there is not a single dharma which is subject to production and extinction in the midst of thusness. Living beings falsely discriminate, this is the Buddha, this is the world. For one who completely penetrates the nature of dharmas, there is no Buddha and no world. The Tathagata universally appears before us,
causing living beings to believe and be happy. The Buddha's substance cannot be obtained, neither can it be seen. If you can dwell within the world, be far apart from all attachments, and be happy and unobstructed in mind, then you will enlighten to the Dharma. What appears to a spiritual power is called the Buddha. At all times throughout the 3 periods, he may be sought, but he doesn't exist. If one can know this, then the mind and all dharmas are completely known and perceived, and one can quickly become a Tathagata within words and language in revealed. The self-mastery of all Buddhas, proper enlightenment transcends words and language, yet words and language are falsely used to express it. At that time, Dharma Bodhisattva received the Buddha's spiritual power, universally contemplated the 10 directions, and spoke these verses. It would be better to constantly and completely endure all of the world's sufferings than to ever be apart from the Tathagatas and not see their power of self-mastery. If there are living beings who have not brought forth the resolve of Bodhi, upon once hearing the Buddha's name, they will certainly accomplish Bodhi. If there is a person of wisdom who in a single thought can bring forth the mind of the way, he will certainly become an unsurpassed honored one. But he must be cautious not to produce downsoul delusions. The Tathagata's power of ease and comfort is difficult to meet in measureless compass. If one produces a single thought of faith, one will quickly certify to the unsurpassed way. Supposing within thought after thought, one makes offerings to limitless Buddhas,
and yet fails to know the true and actual Dharma, then one can't be said to be making offerings. If one hears such dharmas from which all Buddhas are born, although one passes through limitless suffering, still one does not renounce the practice of Bodhi. Upon one's hearing of great wisdom, this Dharma
which all Buddhas enter, universally throughout the Dharma realm, one becomes the guiding master of the 3 periods of time. Although one may exhaust the bounds of the future, pervasively roaming throughout all Buddha lands, if one does not seek this wonderful Dharma, one will never be able to accomplish Bodhi. From beginningless time onward, living beings have long revolved in birth and death, not understanding the true and actual Dharma. Because of this, all Buddhas come into the world. All dharmas are indestructible, nor is there anyone who can destroy them. This comfortable, great, bright light universally appears in the world. End of chapter 24. Praise of the fifth assembly. Above the third Tushita heaven, the wisdom sun unfurls his light. The meanings of the 10 transverses are extensively proclaimed. In the ocean of suffering there are bridges and fords. The sunlight of his teachings spreads far and wide. Flowers rain down and celestial incense descends. Flower Adornment Sutra, the Spiritual Powers, Chapter 28. At that time, universal worthy Bodhisattva Mahasattva told all other Bodhisattvas, disciples of the Buddha, a Bodhisattva Mahasattva has 10 spiritual powers. What are the 10 disciples of the Buddha? With the wisdom-based spiritual power of knowing others' minds, a Bodhisattva Mahasattva recognizes the varied minds of sentient beings in a trichiliocosm. Minds of goodness, minds of evil, expansive mind, narrow minds, immense mind, petty minds, minds that follow birth and death, minds that do not follow birth and death, minds of heroes, minds of solitary enlightened sages, minds of bodhisattvas, heroes, minds for practice, solitarily enlightened sages, minds for practice, bodhisattvas, mind for practice, minds of devas, minds of dragons, minds of yakshas, minds of Gandharvas, minds of Asuras, minds of Garudas, minds of Kinnaras, minds of Maharagas, minds of humans, minds of non-humans, minds of beings in the house, minds of animals, minds of those at the place of King Yama, minds of hungry ghosts, and minds of sentient beings in various places of hardship. Just as a Bodhisattva Mahasattva can discern the limitless many different types of minds of sentient beings in one world, likewise he can do so in 100 worlds, 1,000 worlds, 100,000 worlds, 100 billion ayutas of worlds. He can even discern the minds of sentient beings in worlds as many as the most ineffable Buddha lands. This is called Bodhisattva Mahasattva's first wisdom-based spiritual power, or skillfully knowing others' minds.
Disciples of the Buddha with the wisdom-based spiritual power of the unobstructed purity of the heavenly eye. A Bodhisattva Mahasattva sees countless sentient beings and worlds, as many as dust motes in ineffably ineffable Buddha lands. He sees infinitely many types of sentient beings, such as beings who die in one place and are born in another, beings in good and evil destinies, beings with blessed or cursed features, beings beautiful or ugly, beings defiled or pure, and other such uncountable kinds of beings. That is to say, he sees devas, dragons, yakshas, gandharvas, asuras, garudas, kinnaras, maharagas, humans, non-humans, those diminutive in body, those enormous in body, those small and those great.
With the unobstructed vision, he clearly discerns the various kinds of sentient beings. He comprehensively and unerringly sees sentient beings according to their accumulation of karma, their experiences of suffering and happiness, their minds, their discrimination, their views, their speech, their causes, their karmic results, their condition, and what they give rise to. This is called Bodhisattva Mahasattva, second wisdom-based spiritual power of the unobstructed heavenly eye. Namo Samanta Modana Pola Dihata Jajana Anjimi Jimi Tanta Gadana Mawasate Pola Dibutan Modan Modanta Gadana Mawahum Tansu Namo Samanta Modana Pola Dihata Jajana Mi Anjimi Jimi Tanta Gadana Mawasate Pola Dibutan Modan Modanta Gadana Mawahum Tansu Namo Samanta Modana Pola Dihata Mi Anjimi Jimi Tanta Gadana Mawasate Pola Dibutan Modanta Gadana Mawahum Okay, it will be praised for the fifth assembly. Seven, sorry. Praise for the seventh assembly. In the assembly for the second time in the Universal Light Palace, the great Dharma is again expounded. Lofty, it transcends those on the 10 holy and 3 worthy stages. The meanings of equal enlightenment are mysteriously. The moon of the mind is singularly perfect, ultimately beyond verbal explanations. A special dedication of merit. We dedicate the marriage to the approval of the height variance for the wonderful Enlightenment Buddhist Institute at the public hearing. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace, with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light break the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. 3 bows. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. No.